Inspired action. This is a term that you have probably heard dozens, if not hundreds of times in this community while studying the law of assumption. What does this mean? Exactly. What do we do about action in terms of what we want to manifest? That's going to be exactly the premise of today's video, because this is something that is very, very often confused, and we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of inspired action and what this means so that we're not intentionally getting in our own way. So if you want to learn more about taking action, inspired action, what that means and is in terms of manifestation, then definitely stick around, because we're going to talk about it today. Because the concept of taking no action has clearly confused a lot of people. So to jump right into this, what Neville meant when he said to take no action is that we do not need to impose our will in any way, shape, or form when it comes to manifesting what we desire. And this may feel incredibly challenging to accept, because for the vast majority of people, we have been thoroughly conditioned to think the opposite. So the first concept that we have to embrace is that the how is not your concern. How your manifestation is going to be reflected in your 3D and the actions that are going to be taken, what that looks like, all of that is not your concern. Too often we feel we have a responsibility to figure it out and make it happen. And this is exactly where we often get stuck. Because I have mentioned in many past videos, it is not our job to will this into being or figure out the steps we need to take to make it happen in 3D. So with that said, what is inspired action actually? The important thing to remember is this. Inspired action is unconscious action. As in, you will not consciously know at the time that the actions that you are taking or that other people are taking are inspired. You will not be aware that the actions you're taking are in relation to your desired outcome. At the very least, we're not going to know in that moment. And I'm going to be sharing an example and a personal story in this video. But first, I want to be clear that one of the most common confusions and mistakes that we are making, the only way that we're going to be able to tell that something was inspired action is when we look back in hindsight after it's already happened. That this is the same thing as feeling motivated. Inspired action is not the same as feeling motivated to do a certain thing. And I need to repeat that. Inspired action is not the same as feeling motivated or energized to do a certain thing in relation to your desire. So you may feel a sudden urge or inspired to reach out to your SP directly. This is not inspired action and what that means. So I'm going to go ahead and give some examples to exactly what I mean, to try to break this down a little bit and share a personal story of mine to really flesh out what I am trying to say here. So to use an example to better illustrate this, let's say that you are manifesting a specific person. And let's say that every morning before work, you stop at your favorite coffee shop to grab a coffee and get your day started. And you do this religiously. But one day on your commute to work, you find that there's a lot of construction, maybe there's roadblocks literally that are making it difficult to get to your usual coffee joint. So you decide instead to try the coffee shop that just opened up on the other side of town, closer to where you work. So you reset your GPS, you go to this new coffee shop and run into your SP. And that is the beginning of things being set in motion. In this example, you are not having any conscious idea or deliberate action to try to run into your SP. The inspired action here was deciding to try a new coffee shop because the one that you usually go to was difficult to get to because of the construction. You had no idea consciously that making this decision and taking this action was going to lead you to your desire to see your SP. And I want to give another example by using a personal story of something that happened to me several years ago. Back in 2016-ish, I used to live in Atlanta, Georgia. And for those that have visited Metro Atlanta or been there, you know that public transit is very difficult to come by and you need to have a vehicle if you want to get around effectively. So one day I woke up and noticed that my car wouldn't start. Basically, after running a whole bunch of tests and talking to some mechanic friends, I found out that my car was, for all intents and purposes, dead. And at the time, this was, of course, incredibly stressful because, as I mentioned, I needed a car to be able to get around and commute to work, commute to get groceries. Just daily living required me to have a vehicle. And not having a vehicle was incredibly stressful. And at that time, I was also struggling financially, so I had no idea how I was going to get a car in a very short period of time that wouldn't impact my ability to commute to work and things like that. And all of this took place shortly around the same time or after I discovered Neville Goddard. And so on that day, when I got the bad news about my car, that it was all intents and purposes dead, I did take a moment to imagine the feeling of relief of knowing that I acquired a new vehicle. I didn't have it any more specific than that because at the time, I genuinely had no idea how I was going to acquire a new car. I didn't have the funds. I didn't really have the assistance from anybody. I was kind of up shit creek, to be honest. But nonetheless, I allowed myself to entertain for a moment that feeling of relief, knowing that everything worked out and I acquired a new vehicle. Fast forward about a week or so to one afternoon when I was suddenly feeling like I wanted to reach out and see a friend of mine that I hadn't talked to in a while, really just because I missed them. I hadn't seen them for a bit and I wanted to catch up with them. So I reached out, we made plans, and they offered to come pick me up and come back to their house to hang out and catch up and whatnot. Shortly after I got to their house, their roommate, who was hardly ever home, by the way, this roommate was one that was pretty elusive, but I just happened to show up on a day that they happened to be there. They pulled me aside for a sec and said, "Hey, Missy, I heard from my friend that your car died." And I said, "Yeah, it sucks. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but so it goes, I guess." And they said, "Damn, that sucks. But here's the thing. I just got a new vehicle yesterday, and I still have my old car. And I was already thinking about donating it to a charity cause for the tax write-off. But when I heard from my friend that you were in need of a vehicle, I wanted to offer you first dibs and see if it's something that I can help you with." And I thanked them profusely, of course. But I was like, I don't know how I'm even going to pay you because I am incredibly broke at the moment. So I don't even know if I can come up with a couple $100 right now. And they said, "How about this? I will sell you the car for $1. I will change the title to your name and it'll be yours 100%. And I was shocked at this. My jaw dropped and I started crying right there on the spot. I was so incredibly touched at their kindness and their gesture, especially since this was somebody that I didn't even know that well. I had only met them maybe 1 or 2 times in the whole year that I was friends with their roommate. But nonetheless, they felt moved or inspired to help me after hearing my story from their roommate, my friend. And not for $1 million would I have been able to guess or try to conceive that that is how I would acquire a new vehicle, especially given my circumstances where I did not have enough money to just go out and buy a new car. And sure, it wasn't the nicest car. It was old, it was used, but it was still running fine. I was able to put another 50,000 or so miles on it before I upgraded. And ultimately, in that pinch, it was exactly what I needed. Everything unfolded perfectly. And the only action that I took in that circumstance was feeling inspired to reach out and hang out with my friend. I had no idea that that was going to be the chain of events that led me to getting this vehicle that I desperately needed. So I'm giving you guys these examples and this personal story to note that it is not going to be any way our ability to figure out or ability to conceive of something that makes it happen. Inspired action is completely unconscious. In the example of me getting that vehicle, it was my friend's roommate who felt inspired to help me. The only thing that I did was I took a moment to imagine the feeling of relief. And then I honestly dropped it because I had no clue, genuinely had no clue. And I just went about my days until everything unfolded the way that it did. So as you can hopefully see here, this is not about feeling motivated to do something in order to get the outcome that we want. And I didn't even notice until hindsight, a couple days later, that this was my manifestation coming to pass. All of the actions that were taken here were completely unconscious. It was all the act of my subconscious mind, of the higher self, God, awareness, the I am, that moved everything around in perfect succession in order to get me to that bridge of incidents and ultimately to what I desired. So my aim with these examples, and for this video as a whole, is to help paint a clear picture as to the actions taken and what inspired action means in context with conscious manifestation. As human beings, we are conditioned from the earliest age to think that we need to take action in order to get something, get the outcome that we want. In this context, when it comes to conscious and deliberate manifestation, the approach that we need to take is more of a surrender. It's more of an acceptance that we will not know the how. We will not be conscious of what it's going to take or how to make it work. We will not be able to see what inspired action looks like until we are reflecting in hindsight. I want to help alleviate some of the fear that we have and to combat one of the most common traps that we get stuck in on this journey of conscious manifestation. And that is overthinking. We are very prone to overthinking this. We get fearful of what this action is going to look like, and what if I miss it? What if something happens and I overlook it? How do I know that everything is going to fall into place if I don't have a plan or know exactly what to do? Neville Goddard always emphasized that when it came to inspired action, we would be naturally moved by compulsion. He said that the whole world would be moved by compulsion to execute your desire. So the only thing that we must really remember to keep focus is what we are doing and what we are entertaining in here. As in, where are you allowing your time and focus and attention? Are you ruminating on all of the ways that things could go wrong, or how this is going to happen, or what you need to do to make it work? Or are you allowing yourself to imagine and entertain that outcome as it's already happened? To go back to that feeling of relief. Go back to what you would be feeling and experiencing if it were already done for you. Once we move here, everything out here will be moved under compulsion. Remember that just like this 3D world casts a 2-dimensional shadow, our 4th-dimensional world, or imagination, casts a 3-dimensional shadow. As in, the 3D is naturally moved by the 4D. Thus, the only action we are taking here is what we are imagining, what we are assuming. Once impressed, once felt and accepted internally, the actions that need to be taken, the bridge of incidents, and the steps needed to get you physically from where you are to where you desire to be will transpire in a way that is effortless and unknown to you consciously. We are giving loyalty to the unseen, not the visible, not the circumstances. So long as we have faith, remain loyal to the unseen reality that is our end state, we will not have to lift a finger to make it so. And Neville said this and meant it in every literal sense of the word. You will not miss the action needed to take. If you ever question if something is inspired action or not, the mere fact that you are questioning the action means that it is not inspired action. It is quite simple. And once you know and understand this, once you come to the realization that you truly do not have to lift a finger and that everything will transpire naturally for you so long as you remain loyal to your end state, so long as you not deviate and succumb to the temptations to take the action or figure out the how and know that everything must come to pass perfectly. Once you know this, once you trust and understand this, that is how everything will unfold perfectly and you will naturally manifest anything that you want. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the examples and I hope that helped to clarify. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about inspired action, if there's anything else you want to know, be sure to drop them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you're interested in any of my resources, such as my coaching programs, my workshops, my blog, my podcast, my social channels, got a ton of great resources down in the description box, so don't forget to check that out. Also, be sure to check out the other videos on this channel. Be sure to check out my Manifestation Fundamentals playlist. Each video is a different topic, but it all pertains how to manifest the best life ever. So until we meet next time, as always, please take care, be well, and never forget how powerful you truly are. You do not have to lift a finger to make it so. Happy manifesting, guys.